for Steve. Perfect.
That's a technical movement, you see. I have a degree with that.
Where did the dancing girl go?
I think we're live.
Wasn't a girl to the...
We are live. Talk us in, Chris.
Oh my God! It just got loud. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Christopher Lowry. This is the Brushfire Mind. We are live on YouTube, Google, and wherever the hell else you can watch us. We're everywhere. So here we go. It's 22nd of April. It's 2100, and it's time to kick it off. I've got Rod, Steve, Cody, and Cade with me, and Steve has just reminded me that I didn't turn on my crawl at the bottom of the screen. So let me get you fixed up there. So we got a few things that I want to talk about tonight. We're expecting John Byrne to join us in a little bit, so we get these two goofy old men with the bald shiny heads to go back and forth for your entertainment, because I know it'll entertain the absolute shit out of me. So before we get into any kind of discussion stuff, I want to talk about range 15. So Cody, you tracking on what range 15 is?
Yeah, you're referring to the Matt Best major motion picture that's getting put out.
Well, getting put out is a bit of a stretch, so there's a problem. So, little backstory. Matt Best and his crew, the Ranger Up guys, they do some fun YouTube videos, most especially the Damn Few. What's that, Steve?
I said props to them for it.
Hell yeah. And they're veterans. They support veterans organizations. They support veterans in general. And they ran a Kickstarter to raise money to make a major motion picture, a big damn movie that's all about special ops fucking Rangers. I know I shouldn't say special ops. I should say Rangers. I generally don't really draw a difference between special ops and Rangers. I found them all to be pretty cute and fluffy while I was in.
Rangers get tomahawks.
Both were quite fluffy.
Yeah. Okay, Cody. After this, I'm gonna tell you the story about the time they wanted me to throw a tomahawk. John, I hate to do it to you, brother, but I just muted your microphone because it's pretty loud where you are. But I can unmute you in a little bit and get some conversation out of you.
His mic's picking up good feed.
Yeah, his mic's just picking up too much, but that's all right. We'll get back to you, John. Hang out. So we're talking about range 15. You just joined us, John. And what it is, these guys have made this. It's a zombie apocalypse movie where the survivors that we're following are a bunch of Rangers that are also assholes. It should be hilarious.
Drunk asshole.
Yes. I mean, one of them's toting around a blow-up doll through the whole movie, apparently. It looks pretty damn funny.
Not only that, a coffee company and a whiskey company. You have to admire that.
Yep. Well, anyway, the movie is not rated, so none of the major theaters are planning on showing it at this point. They have, however, put out a plan that involves working petitions and going after the theaters to try and get somebody to show the movie. So I would like us to take that up as a Brushfire Mind cause as well, and let's start circulating that. We'll circulate it from the Facebook page and the website, and see if we can't help these boys get that movie shown somewhere that I can go spend my money on it.
Give me some, because running to Columbus puts a damper in my schedule.
Did anybody get that?
No, Steve, you're breaking up a little bit. Do you have a good microphone plugged into that new machine?
No, this is straight the new machine. That might have been somebody's feet stepping on me because of not being prioritized. How is this sounding?
Still muddy. Try plugging in your snowball for me.
I'll plug it in, but you're going to have to wait for the driver's to.
That's fine. Just shut up for a minute. So, Cody, go ahead and pop in with us for a minute. Just tell me what's going on lately. What have you been tracking on?
On the official / unofficial side, mostly been plugged into school lately. I'm actually going to be taking one of the initiatives that we talked about for the Lifestyles 101 courses, and I'm going to be writing the equivalent of a white paper or a proposal. I need to get in contact with you guys down there for the Georgia Board of Education for where y'all are at, so that I can address it properly, because this is actually going to be an assignment for my advanced technical writing course. But I figured if I'm going to do the work, I might as well do the due diligence and make the work truly worthwhile. So I'm going to write up the actual proposal piece to outline the issues that I see with the current high school level education, the gaps that the education system pretty much across the board in the United States at the high school level is missing. And then I'm going to do a no bullshit course breakdown of how to address that issue, and that's something that I would actually like to take up to the whatever the command structure for the Board of Education is down in Georgia where you guys are at, and I'd kind of like to tag the group and see if we can introduce ourselves into the community through that venue.
Okay. That might be something to talk about on our Adulting 101 initiative.
Yep, that's kind of where I was going.
Not a bad idea at all.
I think I'd probably, hello, does this thing hear me? There we go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think I'd probably emphasize memory skills up in the schoolhouse, because that's where they're lacking the memory skills. An A student, he's got great memory skills. A C student, his memory skills aren't so good. And if you work on those things, you can use Plato's cabin or whatever you want to. You can use NLP, or you can use whatever technique you want. But there's a thing called educational psychology that's supposed to be coming up with stuff. If they would employ some of their findings in the schoolhouse, it would probably be good for the kids. But the memory problems are that's the big problem right there.
I found that one of the best ways to approach issues with memory or cognitive recall is the application of analytical thinking. And what I mean when I say this is we spend a lot of time teaching kids formulas. We spend a lot of time teaching kids processes. And these are things that are predefined, that are pre-established. And it's good for especially adolescents to learn that there are processes and schemes and procedures for accomplishing the majority of things that you're going to do on the outside. But what I feel like we're missing from that is the true element of critical thinking, where if I put you into an area and I introduce a problem set and I say, find a solution, what you do to outline your thoughts, how you collect your work, how you do your research, and how you approach that problem solving. That's something that, in addition to the general skills of being able to understand the basics of investing, finance, how to run a household budget, how to take care of yourself as an adult, and all the requirements that society will levy upon you as you're an adult. I think that those two ideas very, very much go hand in hand.
Well, all I got to say is that a third grader has a different set of skills than somebody who's graduating from college. Now, I mean, what you're describing is something that all the college graduates should definitely have by the time they get out of college. But, you know, we can look at education in terms of the college graduates only really educated about 5% of the way. You know, the high school kids, they've got certain skills that they're going to have, but until you get them to a critical mass where they can start tipping the bottle the way you're talking about tipping it on their own, you got to get to that point first. All right, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with that, and one of the things that I think, so my upbringing as a kid was kind of a little bit of the inspiration for this. A lot of what I was taught as a kid was how to think about things, not necessarily how to apply preconceived notions or understood ideas and concepts, but how to formulate my own concepts and how to understand and apply things to where it struck personal resonance within myself, to where I could find the motivation to go out and go do different things. And I think if you introduce the concepts of analytical thinking at a basic level, and you do it early enough at the freshman, sophomore level, not only will that allow kids to hopefully, and this is hopefully, apply those concepts, but also the perspective that they get as they can go throughout high school, even if they don't go into college, it might teach them to look at the world in the right perspective early enough where they can start pre-posturing themselves. So if you want to go to college, what do you want to do in college? If you want to go to a trade school, what do you want to do in trade school? If you want to find that one problem in the world that you really just jive off of, and that's really what you want to work for the rest of your life, how do you set yourself up to do that before you get turned to the wild in society? Because what I see a lot now as I'm going through college, and granted, my view is my own, and it's very limited because it's the view of one individual. But from what I see, you get a lot of kids that are just going to college to go to college. And while that's that's great and that's part of growing in the experience, at the same time, the cost that is associated with that is further pushing people after they graduate with their chosen path or degree to be able to go back and pay for that time to develop. So if I implement that develop time and I shift it left in the development window, and I have them do that at earlier stages, I might be able to cut down on some of the costs that these kids are incurring by ensuring that they're focused on what they want to be focused on because they've taken the time to look not only at their surrounding environment but within themselves to understand what they want to do and, more importantly, why they want to do what they want to do. Because if they're able to draw on those intrinsic motivational values at that age, and not everybody will be able to, but if it's hard to get over that might help. So that's kind of the actual initial focus push for this idea, this concept, at least as it applies to what I'm currently working on.
All right, hey, John's been.
No, I'm okay. I'm fine.
Okay. Well then, we'll mute John again. Next time we got to get him not in the cafe. All right. I'm tracking everything you're saying, Cody, and I'm right there with you. I have been screaming in the colleges to the education teachers what needs to be happening in early education. You hit critical thinking. Critical thinking is one thing, argument, parsing argument, those are all incredibly useful skills and things that a child should learn early on. For one, learning how to parse an argument is tantamount to learning how to parse any kind of recorded information, so a person can read through it and understand what the difference is between the adjectives that tell you what color the flowers were and the actual content of a recorded history. But the thing that I think we need to hit earliest is just the actual skill of studying. It's not recognized publicly. It's not discussed that studying, learning, acquiring knowledge is its own thing. It's its own skill set. And that skill set is taught almost nowhere. It's just kind of expected that our children are going to be slammed into a bunch of academic study and just kind of intuit how to understand information, how to break down information, how to categorize information, and how to process it that way. So as early as kindergarten, first, second grade, children should be taking classes in, yes, critical thinking, but almost more importantly, in fact, no, I will say more importantly, in just the skill of studying.
Yeah, the ability to conduct research is ultimately an intricate part on pretty much every process that I've been involved in. And unless you're coming into almost, I'll relate it to consulting, where you have built up your level of expertise or your knowledge base so that you're able to exert that experience into the solution of a problem, If you're not able to do that, you need to understand how to research what that issue is and all the different aspects that encompass that specific problem set.
Hey, Steve, you've been awful. Well, Cade, you too. You've been awful quiet.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I mean, the only thought going through my head is, I mean, I wouldn't be the one writing the curriculum, so maybe a lot of people know a lot more than me, but I don't find that there's one really good way for someone to study, to research. It's kind of an individual thing. I mean, there are general things you can do to help. There are ways you can teach people to outline, how to bullet point, how to do things like this, where to go, you know, stuff like using the Dewey Decimal System and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know how much that needs to be a separate thing, like a class, and not just something that a teacher teaches at the beginning of a semester and then refreshes at the beginning of the next semester.
So what I'll say in response to that is more than the application of how to do something, I would say show them the resources and let them find their own path throughout those resources that helps them get to that answer. Because you're right, everybody researches differently, everybody understands problems differently, but there are a finite amount of research sources or materials or processes that you can go through that are going to be the most beneficial. So
right.
part of that problem set is identifying what resources are the most beneficial, but at the same time, if if I show you how to use a hammer, how to use a wrench, how to use a welder, how to use a plasma cutter, and how to use a fucking rivet gun, and I say, I want to build this, you're going to get, infinitely many solutions to what you have asked them to build, and how they come along with that, and that development that they go through, whatever little nuances occur to them, how they look at a specific piece or a portion of that, how they choose to dissect it, and how they choose to work it. Those are the nuances, and that's the mindset that I want to get them comfortable in. I want them to understand, as you're thinking and as you're applying concepts and research and all these different aspects to problem solving, what that space feels like, what that mental flow feels like, so that you understand when you're going out and you're doing those things, that is the type of feeling or feedback that you need to be getting from your environment, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
I think it makes total sense, and I'm sorry I've been a bit absent on this. There's been some other things going on in this particular room with me tonight. The idea being, when it comes to how you're working with somebody trained or untrained, as it seems to be, coming into any situation, and taking this just from the production standpoint I've been in for the last year and a half, you cannot expect everyone to know the things that people of an older generation seem to know by almost default. You have to be willing to teach beyond what you think would be a reasonable expectation of understanding. I've dealt with 18-year-old kids who have never held a screwdriver in their lives, and I have to teach these people how to build something worth several $1,000s to sell it.
Okay, so I'm going to come in for just a moment.
For those of us live, this is my wife, Christy, obviously my better half. Please welcome her if you would.
So what I'm going to challenge with is to speaking to Steve's point of having to teach younger generations. When you start looking at the gaps between the generations, and you talk about the millennials particularly, you are looking at a different generation who thinks differently than the majority of the workers out there, and you have to get out there and you have to teach them. But it's not just teaching them, you have to understand how to speak their language, and you have to learn how to talk to them in a manner that they can understand, or you're not going to get through to them, because they absolutely have a entitled perspective. And if you can't bridge that gap, then you're going to fail.
And Christy, you're about to get your master's here in just a few weeks.
Yes.
And I imagine that you've had people from a lot of the people you've had to work with on projects and things like that have been millennials.
Yes.
So was that like an eye opener? What you're saying is coming from your recent experience, I assume?
I would say it's a mixture. I mean, absolutely. When I look at the number of, when I look at my team particularly, I have a team of 10 people on my team. And when I look at the age gap between them, I work with folks from 25 to 59. And when you look at the 25-year-olds, it absolutely takes a different perspective in order to work with them. I can't approach them the same way that I approach my 59-year-olds. I can't. If I do, then I'm failing my team as a leader in trying to work with them. I cannot apply the same philosophy. You have to approach, when you're working with people, in my opinion, you have to approach people in the way that they need approached, and it depends on their generational gaps.
It also depends on, I mean, our entire school system, and Cody was talking about this earlier with memorization. I mean, that is actually a problem when students are just being taught to memorize answers to a test. Are they really absorbing the information? And these tests are put together. A lot of the people in the educational systems are very left-brain people, and the educational systems attract left-brain people, and yet the majority of students are right-brain.
But I would challenge even that to say you cannot say majority minority. Look at my household alone. I have 3 daughters, a 17-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 10-year-old. I have a 17-year-old who is very much, give her a task, she's going to go do it, and she's going to go apply what knowledge she has to it. I have a 12-year-old that is stuck in a Common Core curriculum right now, who cannot function because her creative mindset does not allow her or empower her to think in the way that the educational system is forcing her to think. And she's failing right now, and her teachers don't know how to deal with her.
Oh, Christy, that's not that they're forcing her to think a certain way. What you're really dealing with there is the public education system prohibition on thought.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I mean, when you talk to me about speaking about majority versus minority and how people, you cannot apply a majority, in my opinion, you cannot apply a majority and minority. I mean, it's. What are you typing?
You go ahead.
You can't apply it. You have individuals, you have people, and each person is different, and you have to identify how that individual thinks in order to how to deal with them. I have 10 people on my team at work, and I have to deal with those 10 people in 10 individual methods in order to be successful with them.
So,
but how do you get a teacher to do that with 30 students?
So smaller class sizes is obviously a huge thing.
well, yeah.
Potentially.
So what? I don't know how my audio is coming over because I switched to a headset type. So can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, we got you licking chicken, baby. Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm going to look at within the paper, and one of the things that I've learned throughout being in different leadership roles at different levels of leadership is, when you're implementing from one system to another, there's going to be what I'm going to call collateral, where you're going to have people that aren't going to be able to bridge the gap because you're trying to institute new things in a system that is designed around different ideals or different methods.
You're trying to shift their paradigm.
Exactly. But one of the things that you can and I think should be done to approach this is within the very younger generations, going back to what Chris was saying earlier, at the elementary and even the pre-K levels, is we need to get back to teaching kids how to effectively communicate. And what that means is separating yourselves from your individual opinions to not necessarily accept a message, but to be able to identify it and to interpret it in order to form or build off of that what you will. Now, you're not going to be able to create a curriculum that responds to everybody. You can't do that. One way that you can do that is to approach it with smaller class sizes, where you have a closer to a one-to-one relationship, that golden ratio of instruction. But at the same time, there are going to be circumstances where you're going to have people that are not interested. You're going to have people that are not willing to apply themselves the way that they should. And I think if we compromise certain things like that, we might be, and it's a concern, I don't know if it's valid and I don't know if this is right, but I will voice it. If we continue to push the mentality that everybody needs to be handled specifically, we get away from how the real world actually operates. And
very true.
if we suspend their ability to understand that it's not a personal thing when I try to get you to fit within a system. It's not a label or a category or anything like that. It's so that I understand the best way to approach or instruct with the mindset of education. I understand the best way to approach or instruct you based off of those categories, because if I spend the amount of time that it takes to know every student individually and tailor craft everything, I might as well just try and build a system where I'm doing a one-to-one approach of mentorship. But what we can do is, at the early stages, institute some baseline of communication standards, where I understand that if I don't agree with you, it's not anything personal, and it's okay to have my own opinions, because that's what makes our society so great, is the ability to facilitate so many different opinions to create a system or to create laws or policies that work for the majority. It's not always going to work for everybody, but it's not intended to specifically exclude anyone. And I think if we do that, and we truly focus on that, then we will be able to set our kids up to adapt to whatever environment they get exposed to. And that
adaptability, that's the exact word. Adaptability is key, because the world will not adapt to them. They must adapt to the world.
Right. And the sooner that I can get anybody to understand that and to take it out of the personal content, or excuse me, the personal context of, oh, it's an attack against me because I belong to X, Y, and Z group, or because I believe this. No, it's not a personal attack at all. It's just a disagreement, and you have to work around and mitigate that, because you're not always going to agree with everything that you're doing, but you still need to be able to function effectively to accomplish whatever, I'll call it a mission, whatever mission you're working towards. You have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to structure yourself around that environment to successfully complete your mission.
And another thing that goes along with the entitlement of the millennials is the automatic vilification of the people in charge. It's automatic. A lot of these young people coming out of college, coming out of high school and college, are going into jobs where they look at the boss day one. That's your enemy. That's who you have to take down to take their place, to move on. And you know, just the general way that success is looked at. One of the things that we fight on this show is the perception of successful people and people who have attained statuses and obtained valuable things through hard work, plain and simple. But the sense of entitlement translates horribly to a working environment when you hate your boss from day one, because just for the simple fact that they're your boss and their house 2,000 square feet bigger than yours.
Well, I think that might stem from being told your entire life or your entire adolescence that you're special
You
and
deserve,
you're unique
deserve,
and you
deserve.
deserve everything in the
Mhm.
world. No, you need to work for the things. And I made a Facebook post. I can't remember how long ago now, but it was something to the effect of the problem, the biggest problem that I see within society is I'm more interested in my ability to take you apart, or you apart, or you apart, or you apart than I am to build myself up or to build up those around me. That mindset, I think, has resulted from this pussification of our fucking youth to where
That's
yeah.
All right, let me hop back in real quick. Cade, you said something just a minute ago about adapting, about how people need to learn how to adapt because the world will not adapt to them. I'm going to take some issue with that. It's not that people need to learn how to adapt. That is useful. It is something that people need to learn. But what they should be learning, as far as adaptability, is that the unique power of man is to cause his environment to be adapted to him. We build homes, we stretch wires, we create technology. That is all. I mean, that's the magic of the mind. That is man extending his will out into reality and altering it to suit himself. So
yeah, I'm with you. However, you are in a position to say that. You are 18 and a half feet tall and 900 pounds, and you've got a deep bellowing voice, and you're a natural leader. You are.
don't forget chainsaws for hands.
Right. and you grew up with a lot of the old druidic practices, the lines of thinking that talk about stuff like the oak to grow and be grown by. Now, this does not fit everyone. In fact, they're in this world, just like we were talking about last week with alpha males versus beta males, there are more betas than there are alphas. I mean, our society is just set up that way. It's like every other animal society out there. And it's not necessarily, you can be taught to reach for the stars, and you can be taught to that you have the ability to mold your environment into what you want it to be. But then there's also well, you know what, I don't have a 145 IQ, and I'm perfectly happy being a day laborer, and I'm perfectly happy doing this. It doesn't mean you're a lesser person, or you don't have to be a leader. You don't have to take control of things, and it's perfectly okay. And I think it's actually more prevalent that someone needs to adapt rather than take that position that you're talking about, which is a great thing to do. But natural leaders, people such as yourself, are going to take that anyway. It's not something that necessarily can be taught. It can be encouraged. Like my dad always said, you can do anything you want. Well, I figured out he was lying to me because I'm not an astronaut. But, well, I guess I could have been, but I'm just way too lazy. But anyway, the point is that, yes, tell your kids. Tell your kids that, yeah, you can do this and you can do that. But when they get out in the real world, adaptability is going to be more important to them, I think, than what you're talking about. And what you're talking about, like I said, is going to come naturally to people like you, like yourself.
So, going back to what your dad told you, you can be anything you want. This is absolutely a true statement, and I think the thing that I see from my perspective that a lot of people haven't grasped is, while you can be anything you want, you have to identify what you actually want, and you actually have to want it. That's the thing. You can do anything that you desire to do if you desire it great enough.
And you have to want to. I'm sorry, just real quick. You have to want to achieve it. You have to want to fight for it. The problem is this mentality of take it from someone else. That is like, yeah. My dad said I could do anything, so I'll just get a gun and I'll go take it from someone else. Boom, I'm rich.
You can do that, but my dad taught me to aspire to accuracy, and chances are, if you do that around me, you're not going to do it before I hit you with lead.
One achiever takes down another, and so the circle of life continues.
But that's the thing. If you,
I'm sorry, guys. There's a couple of us that have been running a bad little chat channel on the side here, talking about specially branded hammers for the Brushfire Mind swag store coming up in the not too distant future. Yes, there will be T-shirts, bumper stickers, coffee cups, skull cups, and apparently heated velvet handled hammers. I'm gonna run a series of bumper stickers in the not too distant that say, "Guns are a disease. You can be a carrier or a victim."
Nice.
And I second that. Can I borrow the floor for a moment?
Please.
Ooh, I Second Amendment that. Go ahead.
Nice.
You're not going to hold a gun at my wife.
You know what? I Second Amendment that. There's another fucking bumper sticker, baby.
I'm with that. I've got to walk away for a minute, so I'm going to give the floor to someone a hell of a lot smarter than me.
It's okay, Christy. You can talk to us while he goes to pee. We love you, sugar.
I feel like Christy wasn't Christy. Were you trying to say something earlier? Because something happened with the video and you got stuck doing like an early '90s rap thing.
Hey, I was trying to.
Okay.
No, I've just been listening, and I guess that the question that I keep asking myself as I've been listening to everybody talk is, why do we have to keep answering the question for the millennials when at the end of the day we are the generation that is before the millennials? We are the generation that has helped raising the millennials. How do we change us? How do we as a generation change who we are and who we are raising? I mean, I look at my 17-year-old and I'm forcibly not trying to raise a child who feels entitled to the things that are out there. And it frustrates me because it's not how do I change her, how do I change me to make a better her?
That's the first step. So a lot of parents or a lot of adults get mad at millennials.
Absolutely. I get mad at a millennial as a leader.
But that's the thing. If a kid's an asshole, I'm not going to get mad at the kid. I'm going to be mad at their parents.
Well, now a big problem with the Gen Xers are getting mad at the teachers. You're not doing right by my kid, you know. So that's right. So that's what I'm saying.
What does that dynamic teach kids, though? If I'm a parent and I look at my kid, and my kid's fucking up because my kid's, I don't know, has a short attention span because they're probably 12 or 13, and I get mad immediately at the parent instead of sitting down and talking with my kid and explaining to them that sometimes in life we don't exactly get to do all the things that we'd like to do, but we have to, Chris knows the term very well, you have to embrace the suck. Cool. But that lesson's not being taught to kids. And then when you have a parent that comes in, and it's so much easier to blame a teacher or another member of society for something that is so close and so personal to you, like your child, because that's a direct reflection of what you taught that kid at an institutional level.
Well, it seems to me, fellas, is this thing still listening to me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, there's a thing called a cop-out. You remember what cop-outs were? That's where folks don't take personal responsibility for performing in this kind of thing. I mean, I've done curriculum comparisons, and you go back and compare what used to be to what is and stuff like that. It's just they're not comparing very well these days. You know, I was taking some Russian up in the schoolhouse at Kennesaw, and the school books were pathetic. I went up in the library and I found a school book, a textbook from 1959. It was perfect. I took notes out of the back of that thing, and I made up my index cards, and I made up my little spreadsheet. I was able to condense that language down into 4 or 5 different little spreadsheets. And I carried it over to Russia with me and handed it to some professors. They looked at it and said, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "I made it." No, you didn't. Oh, yeah, I did. Because the quality of the books is just so much better. It's textbook writing. They really are undereducated kids, and they're doing it on damn purpose, and they get a big damn F, if you ask me. I'm down here in the high school band director down here in Podunk, Georgia, can't teach the youngins how to play in tune by the spring concert. Now, come on, please. That's just unacceptable behavior on the behalf of a band director. If he can't teach a kid how to tune a clarinet to be within a half step of the concert pitch, well, he's just not doing his darn job. That's what's going on. They're not doing their jobs. They've got these little theories about, oh, the parents and this and that and the other thing. Well, okay, the parents are on meth. Okay, let's just presume mommy and daddy are completely irresponsible and they're on meth. Okay, they're not going to do these kids anything except damage. Okay, now who is the adult in this equation at this point? You've got the folks in society that are around them that sort of see them and say, look, there's a kid over there. And then you got the school teacher that's supposed to be dealing with them, and the school has them more than do the parents, right? Now you know that these kids, they have mamas and daddies that are meth heads. You know, we were talking about, well, how do you teach this kid and how do you teach that kid? Well, you got to do something. You know, sit down and talk to them.
And Christy had it right when she said, what can I do?
I'm going to tell you, I used to sit down and talk to youngins. I got them after they were out of high school. And they were telling me stuff about the interpretations and the silly questions that were asked about books like 1984, the ashtray on the nightstand in Winston's little room where he was hanging out with his girlfriend.
Yes, we talked about the ashtray ad nauseum.
Yeah, come on,
write papers about the ashtray, and it's who gives a shit? The ashtray. Okay, so it's a literary mechanism to foreshadow something that happens later in the book, but that's all it is. It's a cute little metaphor to foreshadow a later occurrence. It's got nothing to do with the actual message. It's got nothing to do with the actual construct of an overburdened society where you have to, where you can't buy new razors more than once every 6 months, and you have to, you got your ration cigarettes and your ration chocolate, and well, all that stuff's just, those are just little incidents to the world. No, that's the whole damn point. Is you're talking about a world that has failed so badly that men can not only can men not purchase the things that they need. It is that way because this system has created a world in which men cannot produce. When Trump likes to yell about the Chinese, we hear a bunch of stuff about stuff getting shipped overseas. No more industrial production in this country. No more manufacturing in this country, and you hear all the fallout and all the crying, oh, yeah, it's terrible that we don't have jobs in this country. Okay, bullshit. There's lots of jobs going around in this country. Let's think about the issue of the lack of manufacturing jobs. It's one thing for people to get employed pushing papers and pushing brooms and cleaning toilets or even climbing a corporate ladder and doing the CEO thing. Those are all great jobs, but in a country that doesn't manufacture, let me say that again. In a country that doesn't manufacture, what happens if, let's say we have World War III, and all of a sudden we're just blacklisted everywhere? Where are we going to get our cars, razor blades, cheap plastic toys, whatever it is that we make overseas?
We made a movie about that, Ogre.
Hey, yeah.
We made a movie about that. I saw it. I seen it with both my eyes. It was what was that movie's name? Everybody was kind of had their brain sucked out the back of their head before they were born.
The Matrix?
Huh?
The Matrix.
It was that stupid movie.
Idiocracy.
Idiocracy. Oh, yeah, that one. You see, I got my dad here in the background. That's one of the most educated fellas that's been around for a while. You see what I'm saying? And he taught me something about taking personal responsibility for a thing or two, right? And he was in the Navy, had an appointment to Annapolis, turned it down because we weren't at war, and decided, well, okay, now we're at war again. I guess I'll go sign up and do OCS. Well, the Navy had a thing called the authoritarian paternalism, and that's where people that know what they're doing are supposed to look out for the other folks. You see what I'm saying? There's a thing called the fiduciary. You know, we see all this failure, and somebody's supposed to step up to the plate. Well, somebody's got to step up to the plate somewhere. And if the folks that are supposed to be stepping up to the plate ain't getting it done, then you have to brush them aside.
That's
right?
the thing, though.
Well, I mean, you can't brush them aside by by adopting their methods and being technocratic the way they are.
No,
one thing that Trump does right is he beats the ever-loving shit out of them. Okay. Now, the man is obviously more educated than the rest of them. He's got better degrees. He went to war and then he got out. He knows more about the economy than the rest of them that are running to Hillary. Come on, give me a break. Bernie Sanders, come on, he's a Trotskyite. Well, so is Hillary for that matter. Well, which one of them? Oh, you got the Cuban guy that wasn't even born here. I mean, come on. Which guy are we gonna vote for? We don't know who. We have no idea who we can trust. We have no idea who we can trust, right? And so
we know clearly that we can't trust him.
Now, what if you go back looking at long spans of time about who's done what to whom, and who can actually open up and start talking about books and talk about stuff and actually knows formulas and knows things? Well, I mean, it's not going to be the professional politician types. But can we trust Trump? I don't know. It's just we don't know. Could we trust Obama? Well, I mean, he turned out to be a neocon just as good as any other, right? Did he not appoint Bernanke and Summers and Geithner to run the economy? Was that not Bush's team? I mean, let's call it what it is.
No, don't be crazy, man. Obama wouldn't do any of that. It was all Bush's fault. Why would he? Oh,
man.
Oh, wait a minute.
Man, what up?
I must have been asleep for the last 8 years.
Man, you ain't been asleep. You've been having fun with that PTSD shit.
I only got blowed up 3 or 4 times, maybe 5.
I remember the first time you called me an old mean, bald-headed bastard. I was like, I got this one.
Oh no, that's not metaphorically blowed up. I did mean actually blowed up.
You like blowing things up, don't you? There ain't nothing queer about it. Give me some Tannerite and take you out.
Okay. No shit, there I was. Bagram Air Force Base, northeastern Afghanistan. Cody, you remember this? It's when they had us living with the Poles, right? You remember Channel 1 and Channel 2?
I remember the Polish females.
Yeah, that's exactly Channel 1 and Channel 2, right? And
yes,
we had some Poles. We had some Poles in our tent with us, and we had some French guys in our tent with us. And we took indirect fire one day, and here they all come in their underwear, sprinting out of the tents, sprinting like the devil himself was chasing them, running for the bomb shelter. We're standing there like, guys, we heard the impact. They've already missed. It's too late to get to safety. And one of the French guys turns around and he says, "You Americans don't get it. They don't let us have the guns." We're all standing there with our rifles slung. But you Americans, you're safer. They don't let us have the guns.
They would get mad because we would sit on the back of the airfield and you'd hear small arms fire go off at the perimeter fence on the back side of the airfield, and then you'd hear this sound go off, which was an RPG, and at that point the boys on the flight line had had enough because they were trying to fucking rack out in between flights. So you'd hear an A-10 or an Apache spin up, and then about 8 minutes later you'd hear blah, 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 and then you wouldn't hear shit except us in the back of that can laughing for the next half hour because those dudes just got blown the fuck up.
All right, let's pop back off the war story. Sorry about that.
Let's start talking about the up-armored outhouse.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up. Sure, first let me backtrack. I want to deal with a couple of comments out of this thread, and then we're gonna jump back to that. So, an American earlier said, where is it? Damn, you guys are chatting too much.
An American. John said.
All Americans.
John pointed out there's more of an excuse for the 25 to 40-year-olds. The young people are starting from scratch, and if teaching theory has so advanced, why is the product after 200 plus years worse? than what people received in 1816, and I wanted to address that. John, here's your answer. The product is not worse after 200 plus years. The product is better. Where you have made your mistake here is assuming that the intended product is a more intelligent, capable, liberty-prone, free individual. But, of course, that's not the case. The intended product of the public education system, as published in doctrine, is to produce individual people who are capable of holding down menial labor, but not a threat to the existing structure, that will not climb fast enough to begin replacing their superiors before the superiors are entering into retirement. So the product is actually more efficient than what was being produced previously, but it's also more efficient from the perspective that the intent was to basically create a labor class.
It's all the better if you get them to drop out. That way you don't got to pay them as much.
Well, when you create a class of dependents that has never been instructed how to look at a problem, take it apart, and fix it, and has been taught their entire life to fall within the confines of the system, the reason that the man sitting behind you was able to...
No. You're talking about a system which is intended to create Morlocks. I'm not any man's Morlock. I will not be any man's Morlock. If they are telling me that I have to sit and be a Morlock, and they're going to take it along by pretending that my own individual issues are that important, and while I'm trying to work on my own individual issues, I don't even learn how to think because I didn't sit down, shut up, and listen. That the end product is a Morlock. I would say the better answer is check out of that entire system that is creating idiots and make your own society. And if that makes me a rebel, then so be it.
That's funny. Rod and I were actually talking about the time machine in this context earlier today.
We gotta mute him.
Yeah, John, I'm going to have to mute you again.
I got him.
Thanks, brother.
Let me borrow the mic for just a minute. John, this is not as a personal slight, but that little cheap-ass headphone set with a built-in microphone you bought is astonishingly efficient. Everything in that room, it is unbelievably money well spent. Thank you for that. We just got to get you somewhere other than that particular building. Now, Chris, go ahead.
$4? That's pretty good.
Okay, but yeah, John, my point was not that is what we have individually become, but rather that is the intent of the system that we have. That's the intent of the system that was created. You've been muted, John. Stop trying to speak.
That's because the class that we are right now, since I'll say World War II, there's been two aspects of this in my mind, right? So we've got the poisoning of the youth, in a sense, to create a dependency class. And the only people that can combat that are the people that raise that youth, right? What have we been thrown into over the last 40 or 50 years? It's been conflict after conflict after conflict. And what has that done? That's removed our focus from internally fixing a majority of the issues within our country to fixing issues in another country. So now that I've got a system established and passed while Daddy was away, fixing problems in another fucking country in the world, instead of fixing the problems here, now I've got a class that is coming back, focusing internally, and is seeing the poison fruits that have been growing at the fields back home. And when we go in and try to change that, like a mad dog, the class that we are going in to try and manipulate is responding to that with aggression, with anger, and by trying to attack the very constructs that we're trying to instill in them. So you've got a system that breeds this mindset to take down leadership that has gone away and fixed problems in the other side of the world, and that aspect has been removed from this society, and the youth that is growing up does not know that, does not feel that, does not understand that. and they are comfortable in a system, and we are threatening their comfort by requiring them to think outside of the constructs of that system. That is where we currently are, gentlemen. And understanding that perspective will allow us to develop a strategy that will come in and eliminate the problems that we see.
No, and I'm going to steal the mic here for just a minute because I apologize for being so quiet. That I know is kind of unusual. If you look at where we're at, this is nothing that happened overnight. Right. This is from a generation in the 50s that grew up in a very maternally driven family. Mom stayed home, dad worked, they made decisions together, they paid the bills, they raised the kids, for better or worse with the values that they held dear at the time. In the 60s, you started to have a bit of a counterculture revolution, and I only say a bit because it didn't gain real speed until the late 60s, 68, 69, until it really started to happen. Rod could argue this with me probably better than anyone in this room right now. But then you've got the people in the 60s raised by the people in the 50s who said, I'm never going to beat my kids. They're never going to have to serve detention. They're never going to have to blah. Then you get those people in the 70s. The people in the 70s, I was born in 76. I'll be straightforward about it. You've got a whole bunch of parents born in the 50s, raised in the 60s, into the 70s that happened to decide they were going to let people make their own decisions, for better or worse. And for some of us, it was better. Some of us, it was worse. I won't disagree with that. In the 80s, you had a bunch of teenagers come adults that were mostly influenced by chemicals, different than now, that I'll get into in a minute. But in the 80s, had dealt with a lot of stuff that tended to jibe with the society at the time. You come out of a free love, free dope kind of thing into okay, industry rules, commercialism is awesome, I have to do this to be able to feed my family. Then they got real good at doing that. Then they got villainized for being millionaires because they worked their ass off and went through 3 divorces to get there. Then you get into the 90s. Everything is counterculture. It is everything not what the 80s was. Then you've gotten into the 2000s, and no one knows who the fuck they are. If you cannot define who you are, how do you define where you're going? If you can't define where you're going, how do you define who follows you?
Thank you.
You don't. You don't.
Well,
because you can't. You don't know how to.
You know what you call a leader with no followers?
A jackass.
An individualist.
A lone nut. However.
So here's. So I'm going to ask the question. I mean, I keep hearing this round and round. You know, this is why we're at where we are today. So my question, and I think this is the question that any person watching this is going to ask, what's the answer?
Good question.
How do you, as a person who works for I work for a Fortune 11 company, how do I bring in employees who understand what I as a corporate-minded person need, but also how do I as an individual raise someone who can think for themselves but yet balance the needs of others? What's the answer?
You're going to need to get into some classical education action.
One at a time.
Everybody wants to talk at the same time.
Okay.
She done posed the question.
So let me talk a little bit about what Cody and I have done in the past. Sometimes what you're talking about, bringing in people who are good for the business, bringing in the right people, sometimes that's not an option.
Add to society's value.
Christy, you're... Okay, I'm going to pretend like you're not trying to say anything because I'm not getting the audio and I can't tell what you're saying. So I'm going to skip it for just a second.
I'm used to that.
Love you, sugar. I'll be right back to you.
Just saying.
You know, what we've dealt with in the past, Cody and I, for special missions, it's not always about bringing in the right people for the job. Sometimes it's about bringing in a lot more people than you need and just smashing them until most of them are broken and keeping the ones that are valuable. The problem that comes out of this sort of an education system that we've been talking about, the generation of these generally mindless automatons, by and large, is that they are already nearly irrecoverable. But amid them, there are those who slept through most of their classes because they were bored out of their minds, and then, worked through 4 or 5 pots of coffee and a couple packs of cigarettes and some Tolstoy or some fucking Galbraith at a Waffle House every couple of nights during a week. It's tricky, but, you go and chew on Pendar, and the next thing you know, you might just be sleeping in the basement at the courthouse. the thing is that these kids that are coming in, you have to take control and reconstruct them.
But I think that in my opinion, the diversity adds value, and it creates value for the society and the organization.
Yes, it does. But we're not.
Wait a minute. Hang on a second now. These organizations.
Guys, one at a time. We've got a big log jam of data stream here. Cody, was that you that was speaking the loudest?
Well, I'll let Rod take it, and then I'll chime in after Rod. How about that?
Fair enough. I like the taking turns thing.
All right. Well, here's the musical interlude. These corporations aren't that smart. Let's take UPS for example. Right? They decided to go public. They didn't need the investment money from going public. They had plenty of shareholders. They had plenty of money to do what they needed to do. Somebody got them to go public. It didn't do them a bit of good. All of a sudden, they got a hook in their mouth. Some guy on Wall Street calls them up and tells them what they're going to do. They're not controlling their own destiny no more. Right? Now, there's a thing called being prescient. And if you can think about what's happened before, you can think about what's fixing to happen, right? History rhymes and stuff like that. So what's the difference in between UPS and Sears? Sears back in the 1880s was it, and they put stuff on a train and delivered it, right? So, I mean, if you knew what Sears did with their business model, then you've anticipated what UPS was going to do with regard to all that stuff in China, right? Here comes all this stuff out of China. What's the name of that company, that multi-billion-dollar company, Alibaba or something like that? If you put UPS and Alibaba together, you've got Sears again, right? These big corporate-minded people don't think too good. They really don't. They act like they do, but they don't. I mean, they'll take something like they model everything. And the last really good one that they came out with was modeling up that LTCM thing, which ended up leading the economy into derivatives trading. But LTCM was a complete, absolute disaster, right? But it, like education, failed the way they wanted it to fail, right? And it's just going to pick everybody's pocket. That's all they're doing, is they're picking the flesh off the bones over here in the United States. In Russia, they just collapsed the whole system, and they just ate their flesh right away. Boom. Right? And they had nothing.
Careful, Roger. You're comparing two different monsters right there.
No, they're the same thing.
It is.
It's the same thing. There's no difference between the Soviet Union and the United States of America.
No.
Except for, oh, yes, well, yeah.
You're not going to...
Who's doing the planning? These big corporations, they got commissars. You got these guys that are parading around in chicken outfits, foghorn, leghorn in them, are over here, just running amok the same way commissars did.
Okay.
Trump. What was that guy running for president named Romney? Big old corporate fellow. I'm gonna take your thing.
Fuck the corporate fellow, Rod. You know better than this bullshit. You're talking about 70 years of rule under a communist era that seized the gains of everybody in their fucking nation versus the 30% seized by your government in an American nation. And you're going to compare what a private company did to what a nation did to a nation. Well, basically, what a despot did to a nation over what a corporation did over their shareholders.
It's all the same kind of folks.
Same thing at all.
I don't think the same way. They all stop for nothing.
What happened with UPS didn't affect.
At ease.
All right.
At ease.
Got to step in.
All right.
You're talking over each other. We're losing feed.
Way too much. All right. So, I'm really horrible with names. Steve, what's your wife's name? Because it's the only way I'm going to learn it.
Christy. It's the only name that matters.
Okay. Christy, to answer your question, where we've gone through and we've identified problem after problem, and she's got a very valid point that we need to focus on is identification of the problem is the first step. The second step is implementing a solution that resolves the problem, right? The thing that we need to look at is we need to have a realistic expectation of a solution. So in operations orders, right, I'll take it to the military side. When we conduct an operation, there's a couple of different things that we look at prior to a confirmation of intelligence, if you will, so that we understand the environment as we see it. Now, the second step, well, I'm skipping a bunch of steps, but aside from giving you guys a complete lesson in how military operations are conducted and structured, you basically do your preliminary inspection, gather your intelligence, understand the environment, and then you draft an operation that comes from that. But the first step after that is looking, and it's called battle damage assessment. And when you're conducting battle damage assessment, one of the things that you have to look at is whether or not your intent was achieved with your operation. So one of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing prior to the conducting of that operation is that we are posturing ourselves so that we can observe the effects of that operation in the environment after it occurs. So to answer your question a little bit better, instead of dancing around it in a political fashion, which I really don't like doing,
Thank you.
you're not going to get a 100% solution. The solution that we're going to look at is maybe at best going to be a 20 to 30% solution. Because if you look at our society, one thing that's been consistent since its inception to its current state has been 30% or less of the country runs the fucking country. Whether we agree with that and who's in that position at what time is irrelevant. So what we need to do is structure to retrain the 30% of the upcoming generation. So if I get people that aren't interested, that don't want to pay attention, that don't have the initiative, natural selection. And we can't coddle and restructure and give everybody a fucking trophy.
I agree.
When you outline and you give everybody the basic capabilities at an institutional level, and even if we're going back to the reapplication of those basic principles or institutions at a later generation, like to approach the millennial generation, if we reinstitute those and the people that stick with those are going to be the ones that go on to inspire change. That's how you achieve success within a generation. You're never going to change an entire generation completely. There's going to be people that are just fucking stuck being millennials for the rest of their life. And that's something that we're going to have to learn how to and develop strategies for mitigating. But for those 10% that listen, that move forward, the natural order of things will take place. But in order to do that, we need to look at the control mechanisms that are put in place to keep the current system established. And we need to isolate those, and we need to destroy those. So corporate money in politics, I would say, is step one. Now, one of the unique things that I will say about the millennial generation, while they like to talk about their feelings, the methods that they have developed to talk about their feelings, social media, different venues on the internet, there is great hope in the ability to spread the lesson to the 10% through their own environment. And what we need to do, I would say, in the next 5 years is do our necessary intelligence collection to understand the environment that we're going to cause an effect on. Now that's going to require study of the millennial generation. It goes back to what you were saying earlier. If I don't understand how to communicate with somebody, I can't effectively look at changing them, or I can't effectively look at manipulating them. So understanding how to communicate between the generations is really probably going to be the first step. And then identifying and isolating corporate money that goes into politics is going to be the next step. Now, we're at a very unique point right now in time, and something that's very, very important that has occurred recently that is not getting anywhere near the amount of press or discussion or conversation that it should be is the Panama Papers. Because the Panama Papers highlights that environment of the political or the corporate influence into politics. And it does it by illuminating the finance streams that are used to buy politicians, not only in our country, but globally. So if we run a parallel effort to understand how to communicate with the next generation and understand how to communicate the importance of stuff like the Panama Papers. Okay, you want to bitch about government or you want to bitch about different things? That's great. Here's where you identify the actual issues. Here's how the structure is supposed to function. And here are the actual issues that are going on. And the effective communication of those issues to that next generation, while we, as a generation ourselves, are continuing to work those issues, will ensure that when we kick the bucket, which, by the way, we're all going to do, that fight or that desire for fight continues on.
Okay. I want to address that simply from one direction. I don't know the entire stack of details out of the Panama Papers. I'm sure with that many pages, there's more to it than I realized. But for the way you just described it in the short little blurb that you had, Cody, and I asked this of you and Chris specifically, and both of you will know the reason as soon as I ask it, is what is the difference between what the Panama Papers have revealed and what Edward Snowden revealed? And no, you are not allowed to be dichotomous on this.
Oh, that's easy.
Chris has
the biggest difference. No, the biggest difference is in the case of Snowden. Snowden actually committed treason, and more importantly, the treason he committed was dishonest. The things that Snowden released, the things that Snowden claimed were being done, were bald-faced lies.
They have
the vast majority of what's.
Wait, hold on. Let Steve.
No, go ahead, Steve. What did you say?
Oh, I simply said they haven't proven that way.
Oh, no. I'm telling you from firsthand experience, the things that Snowden accused the NSA of doing were flat fucking lies. It was absolutely deleteriously dishonest.
So here's the thing, man, and this is what I'll say about Snowden, and this will probably be the only time that I talk about this. So the issue with Snowden is a couple of different things, right? The way that he went about it was wrong. And the reason that I say that is because within our own channels, and now I get the perspective and the people that are going to be out there going, well, if he did it within the appropriate channels of the environment or organization that he was in, what effect would he have had and how would it have been dampened so that it wouldn't have been exposed to the level it was? Well, there's a reason that there's the appropriate channels to communicate issues within our own systems. It keeps it within the issue, or it keeps it within the channels of our own system. That's a national security issue. So we have oversight. We have had oversight since pretty much inception, because a lot of the guys at the top that are looking at the different aspects of bulk data collection. Okay. Here's the thing about bulk data collection. None of the information is processed in an intelligible form until there is other intelligence that indicates that there may, at some point, have been an interaction within that data pool. And that is the only time that somebody will go in there and essentially utilize that data.
Right. What Snowden said was that there were just a bunch of people sitting around who could turn on your cell phone and listen to it whenever they wanted to, and they were just doing it for chuckles, basically. Snowden's assertions were incorrect. They were maliciously dishonest. What he did was try to hurt America. He tried to hurt a system that he was furious with for whatever reason. And he stated that his reasons were that American privacy was being invaded. And I will not say that it is not being invaded to any degree. But what Snowden said was happening wasn't. He's just a liar.
he had the equivalent, to use an analogy, he had the equivalent of a peephole view into a much larger system. Now, the issue with a peephole view, as all of you I'm sure are aware, is it does not allow you to fully see what you're looking at. So in the wrong context and without having the level of knowledge that you would need to understand things like entire operations for bulk data collection, at first glance, yeah, it's going to look wrong because you're only seeing a small portion, and that small portion does not illuminate any of the oversight that goes into those operations. Any time that the government has to do anything at all that deals with any American individual, it has to go through its own court approval. It's the same thing when you're looking at a warrant. Exact same thing, because it was modeled after the same fucking document, the Constitution.
You are an awful trusting sort for someone in a channel that doesn't agree that government is doing its job.
There are certain aspects and there are certain personalities that are in charge of things that will ensure that certain liberties will not be violated.
I say,
Oh no. The only thing that guarantees that
Hold
certain
on.
liberties will not be violated is our Second Amendment. Period.
bullshit. All of these rights have been violated ever since the 50s. Have you guys ever even heard of Joseph McCarthy? There was nothing at all constitutional about McCarthy's hunt. Congress and the president were behind it. You guys are going to trust this much out of that? And I don't care if you vilify Snowden. We've had our disagreements, and I mean, I'm not military. I've got lots of people that are military friends, several in this channel, actually. I fully disagree, and I don't understand the trust that you guys give in a central government, in the NSA, in the CIA, in anybody with an alphabet soup kind of moniker, that they're going to use this in the way that they're purporting that they're going to. I'm sorry. If you've got anybody in there that's going to say that they're only going to do this, they're only saying that because they know they have the capability to do more, and it's been proven in the past that they've done more than they're supposed to do with the power that they have. Case in point, this entire thing with the San Bernardino shooters, and yeah, fuck them. But on the other hand, the FBI tried to force Apple to give them a back door into every cell phone. They didn't need it. They knew they had 100 guys on payroll that could crack that cell phone. They wanted a precedent to be able to crack any phone they wanted anytime they wanted to. Not the fact they needed into that phone. They wanted a precedent. You're going to trust a government that is known for the kind of shadow things that bust people. Some of them are the same mind that are the reason the country exists to begin with.
Break for a second. So, two things. A, if we get into the whole aspect of every government entity is composed of individuals, all right? Individuals will act against rules set within an organization. Those organizational rules, they will go rogue and they will do things.
Some, not all, because some agree that the people should be controlled.
Exactly, but there are institutional rules that are set up, and those are the rules that I was speaking to. I'm not speaking to the actions of the individuals that have committed violations of those very rules against the people that they swore not to do that against. But I will not say that the organizations themselves are institutionally created to violate those rights. It would be the same thing as saying, you know, this guy took an AR-15 to a fucking movie theater and shot a bunch of people, so everybody with an AR-15 is going to take fucking AR-15s to the movie theater and shoot people.
It's a false equivalency, Cody. It's a completely different situation. When you're talking about the control of people, you're not talking about the murder of people. That's a false equivalency. It's a whole lot easier to control a populace and their thought process than it is to control one guy to kill 100 people. I'm sorry, it is.
But what I was comparing there was one out of the many, and letting the actions of one speak for the many. As a member of the many, no. I have personally stopped people from abusing these rights.
Which is great. No. I would commend you for that. But there are an awful lot of people in power who pay people to do that, not stop them from doing it. And there's not an argument in this. It's been proven time after time, especially in light of who the Democrat nominee is likely to be.
Now, Steve, you got pretty accusatory there with, I don't know how you can trust the government, blah, 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 blah. That's not what I said. I didn't say that I was offering my trust to the organizations or to the government at large. I didn't even say that what Snowden came out with was something that was wrong because of the damage that it could do to the government. I mean, that is a part of it. The fact that what he did was cause serious, dangerous harm to national security. But more importantly, what he did, my point was that from personal experience, I can tell you that the information he released and was reported as he released it was fallacious. The statements he made, the claims he made were wrong. They were untrue claims.
Some of what he said were untrue claims, but what he had said opened up the doors for people to see what was actually going on. And when you see what was actually going on, what was the capability, even if what he said wasn't right, when people started looking at it, they saw capabilities that were told before that were not part of the system.
Wait. So what you're saying is, even though there's not actually an epidemic of rape on the campus, we should report that there is one, just in case we might find one somewhere else.
No, what I'm saying is people claiming that you have automatic weapons when you're not allowed to have them, and somebody coming and searching and confiscating all of your guns because somebody claimed you had guns you shouldn't have, so you cannot have any guns at all, is what I'm saying. And that's essentially what it's come down to. It has come out. He said that people were listening any time they felt like. Can you argue against the fact that people could have your cell phone number for shits and giggles? They could enter your cell phone number into the database and find every conversation you've had for the last 5 years didn't exist?
Really? Do you want me to answer that question honestly?
No. Stop.
You can't. You can't. Just stop, because I know you guys. I love you guys, and you can't. Stop. We all know if you have a number you want to check, you can check the database for the fucking number. It's not that hard.